guys, Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome to the video. If you're new here, my name is Ash. I put out mediocre Raid Shadow Legends content on a daily basis every day of the year.
Back in my bag and I gotta brag, I do this.
Physics the unbowed unlocked. Hopefully I said her name right. I got it right, didn't I? Whoa. Me and you today, okay?
Run.
If you like the content here, feel free to subscribe. I do put out, as I said, new videos for beginners, intermediates, and advanced players, kind of mix things up here on the channel. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're a returning viewer,
what the hell are you doing here?
I love you. Welcome back. Happy New Year. So today we're going to go ahead and go through the entire game. And what I want you to take away from this video is the following. You should have an understanding of what every area of the game is. We're going to try to kind of take a tour to begin things, because when you download this game, it can seem pretty overwhelming. There's like so many different things. There's so many champions. There's so many different ways to upgrade them. There's so much to do. It can kind of turn some new players off. So I want to give you an understanding, kind of lay of the land, right? After that, I want to have a good kind of set of goals for you guys for the early game on your account. What should you be focusing on early on? After that, some quick do's and don'ts, some, beginner tips for you guys. And lastly, the golden rule of Raid Shadow Legends. All that and more in today's 2023 Beginner's Guide for Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome. We have the portal. So the portal is a very, very basic concept. This is where we're pulling shards. We have mystery shards, which we get a bunch of them for free, hence me having 8,000 of them. We have ancient shards, which are a little bit more rare. We have void shards, which are even more rare to come by. And then we have sacred shards on the bottom. You guys can see those are the most difficult to get shards in the game. The most reliable way to get these shards, especially the sacreds and the voids and ancients, is through the clan boss, which we'll talk about later. Just make a mental note. That's how you get them. They're hard to get, or buy them if you're inclined to spend any money on the game. But
oh no,
kind of a foreshadowing to the golden rule. You can enjoy this game a lot without spending money too. We'll talk about why and how a little bit later. So yeah, we can pull shards. The biggest thing that you want to know about mystery shards, these free shards, is you do have a 1.4 chance to pull a rare champion, 24.4 to pull an uncommon champion. Opening up these void shards, or excuse me, these mystery shards, and keeping an eye out for specifically Armiger. He's an uncommon champion, and he's the best uncommon in the game. You're going to want to keep him and not use him as food. What is food? We'll talk about that in just a moment. Rare champions, you do have a shot at pulling some decent rares. Apothecary is a champion in the early game you're going to want to keep your eye out for. If you pull him, definitely don't want to use him or trash him or get rid of him in any way, okay? Other than that, you can see the chances for rares, epics, and legendaries on the other shards. General rule on shards, they're going to throw all these special events at you in this game. They're going to give you so many reasons to pull your shards, to use your shards, but by far and away, the best time to pull your shards in this game is during double chance events. Come on, man. 10 times is a hoax. 10 times is a scam. Say it with me, man. 10 times is a hoax. Here we go. 32 just kind of fell in my lap. I just kind of blinked and they were there. Usually around every other week, they do change the cadence here and there, but wait for double time events. It's going to give you, well, a double the chance to pull an epic or a legendary from those shards. Those are the best and most efficient times to pull and use your shards. So special champion events, guys, we have fusions and fragment summons, same area in the summoning portal. Fragment summons, you don't have to worry about so much. Essentially, you're collecting champions, one little fragment, or usually 5 fragments at a time. Fusions are special events that happen around once a month or so, usually once every other month sometimes, and there's some permanent fusions in the game as well. It's where you have to essentially sacrifice a bunch of champions to get a usually pretty decent champion, okay? So Broadmaw is a permanent fusion. There's also a permanent fusion for Raz and Scarhide. Both of those champions are worth going for, but I wouldn't make it a priority in the early game to go for those fusions. Next up, guys, we're gonna have our Great Hall. We're gonna kind of move clockwise here. The Great Hall, mine is maxed out. I've been playing this game for a while, but generally speaking, the Great Hall, you're going to want to prioritize your accuracy, and usually a good place to start is your magic affinity accuracy. But the truth be told, there's really no right or wrong way to upgrade your Great Hall. General rule of Raid Shadow Legends is play the game how you want to play it. Just giving you kind of best tips, best advice. There's really nothing wrong. If you go resistance or crit damage, you're not going to ruin your account or anything like that. However, I will say that attack is generally the best place to do last, because attack only affects about a third or a half of the champions in the game. All other stats affect every champion in the game, because some champions do damage based on their defense, or do damage based on their HP, whereas only a few champions, again, about a third or so, do damage based on their attack, but they still benefit from HP and defense. Generally speaking, though, accuracy is the first place that you want to be putting your points into, using your medals on, and you farm your Great Hall vis-a-vis the arena, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Moving along here, we have the Tavern. So the Tavern is pretty basic. We have two kind of champion selection screens. We have our champion button, which we're going to press right now. That's where you put the artifacts on your champions, you gear them up. And then we have the Tavern button. The Tavern is where you upgrade their skills, you upgrade their rank, you ascend them, you level them up, you do all that kind of stuff. When it comes to just gearing them out and choosing their masteries, you choose the regular champion screen. So the two areas you're going to toggle between oftentimes to fully upgrade your champions. We'll talk more about, these specific areas in this screen in just a bit. So guys, the Guardian Ring is a relatively new addition to the game, about a year old or so. This is not something you have to be super concerned with in the early game, but it's nice to know what it does, right? So faction guardians, every single faction in the game is divided into, as you can see, 12, 14, 15 factions right now. They're always adding new factions, usually about one a year. This year we got Sylvan Watchers, last year we got Shadowkin. Essentially what you want to do here is eventually when you get duplicate champions, you want to go ahead and click on it and choose your dupes and put them in your faction guardians, right? What this is going to do is give you a stat bonus across that entire faction. So now all of my banner lords are going to get plus 10% HP. All of my banner, and it's divided by rarity as well, right? So all my epics are going to get 10% HP, and then all my legendaries are going to get 10% HP. In the early stages of Raid Shadow Legends, you might have some duplicate rare champions, you might have a couple duplicate epic champions, but you don't want to stress yourself out worrying about faction guardians. This is seen as more of a late game feature in the game. Same thing with champion empowerment, champion unbind. Generally speaking, you're not going to want to be unbinding any champions in the early game. It's where you essentially sacrifice a champion, you get tokens in return, and then you can use those tokens to buy a champion vis-a-vis the token trader. But again, it's not something you're going to want to be focused on or distracted by in the early game. Just save this for later. One thing I should say though is the sparring pit in the Guardian Ring. You want to take advantage of that. It's essentially ways to just level a champion passively at all times. So you're asleep, they're still leveling if they're in 4,300 XP an hour. It's a nice way to kind of, again, passively level up your champions while you're not actually playing the game. Next, we have the Altar of Souls, a brand new feature in the game. Again, this is the feature that I think is more geared towards the end game, so you don't have to stress yourself out worrying about mortal soul stones, immortal soul stones, and eternal soul stones, but essentially we can awaken champions. This is, again, a fairly new feature in the game, was added in 2022, and what this is going to do is add new ways to empower your champion vis-a-vis something called blessings, right? But again, this is something you don't have to stress yourself out with in the early game. You don't need to know exactly what every little feature does. You don't need to know the exact economics of the Mystic market, but it's something to be aware of. This particular feature of the game is tied to one of the dungeons called Iron Twins Fortress. So Iron Twins Fortress is going to give you these coins and these soul essences that can be used to acquire champions to upgrade and awaken and use blessings on, okay? But again, most of that stuff is going to come towards kind of the mid-game and the end game of Raid Shadow Legends. All you really need to know is this is a new way to upgrade your champions that was added recently. It's more mid to end game kind of focused, and you use the Iron Twins Fortress to get the resources to ascend these, or awaken, excuse me, these champions. Next up, we have the market.
My name is Mark. You can count on it.
So the market is going to have some decent gear, maybe some average to below average gear. I personally don't spend a lot of time, or advise players spend a lot of their resources in the market. Some things to be on the lookout for though is there are ancient shards that come in the market for 200,000 silver. That is generally a good deal. You do want to buy those ancient shards. Also, you can buy one item a day. I don't recommend using gems to refresh here, by the way. Gems are a premium resource in Raid Shadow Legends, as I do it right now. but I do recommend buying maybe a mystery shard every day. What that's going to do is complete a daily quest to give you extra classic arena tokens, which will help you farm up your Great Hall a little bit faster. Remember how we said the Great Hall, for those of you who forgot, right up here, this is attached to the arena. I'll just show you the battle. By the way, all the dungeons and everything in this game are in the battle button here in the bottom right hand corner. So you can see the arena. There's 2 arenas, tag team where you have 3 teams, and you can use the shop to buy stuff for the tag team feature. But regular classic arenas where you're going to spend more of your time in the beginning of the game. And this is basically every time we win an arena battle, we have 4 champions on our team. They usually have 4 on their team. This particular team only has 1. Some people only leave like 1 person on their defense, 1 champion, just to kind of lose trophies because they like to kind of stay in one particular area. But what is going to happen is eventually when we kill Arbiter, we're going to get, you can see these medals, these gold medals, and that's what we're going to be using to upgrade our Great Hall, which I just showed you guys. While we're here in the arena, guys, the biggest thing to know, and I'm going to go ahead and use my 5 arena tokens that we just got, right? Nice, easy peasy. The biggest thing to know, guys, is when you set up your very first arena team, you're going to have your starting champion, a champion like Kale, for example. What you kind of want to get towards eventually is having a nicely balanced arena team. So you'll have your Nuker, that could be your starting champion. Again, we're going to use Kale here, but it could be Galek or Elhain or Aethel. Those are the 4 champions you have to choose from at the beginning of the game. I personally power rank them, by the way. Kale, Aethel, Elhain, and Galek, but really they're all pretty solid, okay? So we're going to use him as our Nuker, Kale in this case, and then eventually we want to go ahead and get some speed on the team, like a speed booster like Apothecary, who I mentioned earlier in this video, and then we want to have a debuffer. So War Maiden is a great debuffer that you can get for free. I'm going to go ahead and refer you guys to the first video that I mentioned that I'll be referring you guys to in this video. I have a video talking about the first 3 champions you should be maxing on any new account, and I will leave that for you in the description below. That's going to help you more along the lines of making your first balanced teams, whether it be for the arena or anywhere else in the game, okay? So Apothecary is going to be a speed booster. We have a debuffer, and then we can use anybody in the lead who has a little bit of a speed aura. Let's go ahead and use Gorgorab. He has increased ally speed in arena battles by 23%. These auras, some champions have them, some don't. For example, Kale, all the starters have HP in all battles. Whoever you put in your lead position is going to give your team that bonus, and that bonus scales off of their base stats. In other words, a champion like Apothecary, for example, his base speed is 106, so he's going to be getting a 23% boost off of that 106. Now, if you look at his total stats here, 172 is his total speed. It's not going to be 23% of that. It's going to be 23% of his base, which is 106. We care a lot about the base stats of champions in this game because all the artifacts we put on them, all the buffs we give them are going to scale based on these base stats. So if you have higher starting speed, all of those bonuses are going to get all those bonuses are going to get exponentially higher from there. Make sense? So the reason this is a good team, guys, is because we have some balance. We have a speed champion. Apothecary has an ability that's going to boost turn meters, give increased speed. He's going to bring things to War Maiden, kind of hand things off to her. So with the order of operation, the speed of these champions is going to be very important, whether it's PvP in the arena or in a dungeon, right? So essentially, we want to go ahead and have our debuffer. War Maiden has a decreased defense. She's going to set the table for our Nuker, who in this situation is going to be Kale. So again, the turn order or the speed of these champions is going to be very important. So we want to have Apothecary the fastest. Then we want to make sure that our debuffer, in this case War Maiden, is going faster than Kale, going ahead of Kale in the turn order, and then we smoke all the enemies. So on the gem mine, guys, gem mine is worth upgrading in my opinion if you think you're going to be playing this game for a long time. It's because it pays off dividends, but it takes a while to get those dividends back. It's kind of like a savings account, right? You spend your gems up front, and eventually you're going to make enough back in interest, but it's a low dividend, low yield savings account. When you realize that, yeah, Raid Shadow Legends is the game for me, I think that's probably a safe time to upgrade your gem mine. Other than that, maybe just save your gems in the early game, right? So it really depends on you. The last thing on this main screen here, guys, is the Forge. Forge was added a couple years ago. It's a way to craft artifacts that are, generally speaking, maybe a little bit better, a little bit improved than the artifacts you're going to be starting out trying to get that you get from dungeons. However, make no mistake about it, there's still some really good artifacts in dungeons that even endgame players still use. So that's not to say that dungeons are worthless and Forge is where it's at. Generally speaking, for the Forge, you want to make it sure you're taking advantage of the faction crypts, which I'll show you guys right now because we've shown everything, right? Forge material, a lot of Doom Tower, which is a new addition we'll talk about in a moment, is kind of connected to the Forge. But generally speaking, in the early game, you don't have to kill yourself worrying about Forge materials and the Forge right away, right? You will get the hang of it. You will kind of understand what all these stats do and what it all means. But in the beginning, you can be focused mainly just on dungeons. So let's go ahead and go to, well, before we go to the battle screen and I take you through all the dungeons, let me just talk quickly about missions and quests, events, tournaments, all this stuff, right? So in the beginning of the game, you're going to be put in a beginner's tournament. Generally speaking, that's pretty easy because it's all brand new players. So you want to go for that. There's some pretty good rewards. And what you can use in the early game is you can use quests, missions, and all this stuff as if you don't know what to do, just click on quests. Oh, daily quests. Make 4 artifact accessory upgrade attempts. Beat a campaign boss 3 times. You're gonna get pretty decent rewards, some silver and stuff like that along with it. So it's all gravy. Again, use this as kind of a compass when you lose your way. You don't know what to do next. You're overwhelmed. Just go to your quests or your missions. On the tournaments and events, they generally have really good rewards. And essentially what it's doing is it's giving you 1 dungeon. So a lot of these, like champion training is training up your champions, right? Upgrading them, levels and stuff like that. But the dragon tournament is simply the dragon's lair, which I'm going to show you guys in just a moment. It's just a dungeon. It gives you bonus rewards as you farm that dungeon. So it's a good time. Again, if you don't know where to farm, you're kind of on the fence with what to do with your energy. Almost everything in this game, by the way, costs energy. Let me talk about the resources here. See, 643 out of 130. This is the energy that I have. It costs energy to do battles in this game, right? So you're not sure where to spend your energy.
If I had one.
Maybe go with something that has an active tournament going on right now. Even if you don't win the tournament and the rewards are usually pretty good, that's how you get relentless gear, for example, you can still get these rewards on the right hand side. Everybody gets these rewards as long as you get high enough in the points. This is just a leaderboard. So first place gets, you know, relentless artifacts and rank or substat charms and an ancient shard. You don't have to stress out too much about coming in first all the time, but these rewards are nice to have as well. So guys, now let's go ahead and press battle and get through all these areas in the game, the different ways to spend your energy and your keys and all the other resources in the game.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
So campaign is going to be where you're going to start this game, right? There are 12 different levels. The first thing you need to know about campaign is there's some really good free champions that everybody can take advantage of in the campaign. We mentioned War Maiden earlier as our debuffer in the arena. You can get her right from stage 9 in the Dreadlands. There she is, War Maiden. She's a rare drop, meaning that you have to farm a little bit to get her, but eventually you're going to get your hands on her, and she's definitely worth upgrading. In fact, she's one of the first 3 champions that I recommend you guys upgrade in that video that I referenced earlier. Diabolus is pretty good, even if you take her just to level 50. Level 60 is max in this game. She's good. She has good control, good turn meter, stuff like that, increased speed as well. There's actually a lot of decent champions that can help you out, especially in the early game. Even Valerie is pretty good in the early game. I wouldn't all the way max her out, but she's a champion definitely worth upgrading and using just to help you progress further in the campaign, right? In the early game. Now, the thing that you want to know eventually in the campaign is there's different difficulties, right? There's normal, there's hard, there's brutal, and there's nightmare. Eventually, you want to get to brutal and get to stage 12 and then stage 3 in level 12, right? And this is going to be the best place to farm experience and a little bit of silver for your champions that you're trying to level up, to either use as food to sacrifice to level somebody else up or to just level up to max them out, right? Now, what the heck am I talking about? This is a good time to talk about how we're leveling up champions in this game. It's a lot of work, and the biggest thing, guys, is the first champion that you max out is going to be the most difficult, and then it's going to get a little bit easier every single time because you're going to have more powerful tools at your disposal to upgrade the champions. But let's go ahead and let's just pretend I'm not even at brutal yet. Let's just pretend I'm on normal. So there's the first difficulty. I get to stage 12 eventually. I go to stage 12, 3, and then I want to upgrade my very first champion. Let's just say I'm going to use Kale as my campaign farmer. Your campaign farmer is generally speaking just going to be your first starting champion, right? So I'm going to use Kale, and let's pretend I wanted to upgrade. I pulled, let's see, Galek. I pulled Galek and I want to upgrade him, right? Well, I'm going to need food too. So how do you get food in this game? And what is food? Food are champions that you're sacrificing in order to upgrade another champion. The best place to get it is mystery shards. You're going to get a bunch of common, crappy champions. Death Knight, we love you, man. But no, Death Knight, they had a big campaign around. He's like one of the quintessential characters in Raid Shadow Legends. But you're going to use those champions as food. You level them up, and you sacrifice those champions to rank up another champion that you actually want to upgrade. So let me just show you quickly. It's always best, by the way, to use all three of these spots because they're gonna be splitting the experience. So for example, Death Knight, who we just pulled, Spirit Host, for example, and Aethel, they're all gonna be splitting the experience 25% each. This campaign farmer, it could be, as I said, let's just pretend it was Elhain.
What? Why me?
Well, let's not pretend it was Elhain. Let's actually use a real campaign farmer. Let's pretend it is Elhain maxed out, right? You're gonna go ahead and run this again and again and again, right? This is the grind of Raid Shadow Legends. And eventually all those champions aren't gonna be level 1 anymore. They're gonna be to the point where you have to rank them up. And what you do is to rank a champion up, you sacrifice either chicken, which is a resource you can win from events and tournaments and stuff like that, or you can buy, or you sacrifice somebody else. So all these champions that we're leveling up in 12.3 right now, we're going to eventually sacrifice in order to rank up somebody else, and then you start the leveling process all over again. You can see they're gaining a bunch of levels here. Now they're level 2, level 2, level 3, and then eventually we just keep repeating this, and we go to the tavern, and I will go ahead and rank up a champion for you guys so you can see exactly what it's all about. Who do we have that's rankable right now? We have pretty much nobody, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. Z, for example, right? Now, there's these potions that you can use too. Kind of a cheat code right now, right? Instead of taking them into the campaign, but they're few and far between. So we have her at level 40. We can't upgrade her anymore, and we have this button that says upgrade rank, okay? We click on this button, and now we have chickens, or we have other champions that we can sacrifice, right? So let's go ahead and use some other champions instead.
You'll never see me again.
These are epics. We don't want to be using epics, okay?
Okay.
You know what? I don't even want to show you guys epics because generally speaking, that's a very, very bad thing. I'm going to use chickens, right? Now, instead of chickens, this could be other champions that we farmed up. Other crappy, like Death Knight, who we just pulled. These mystery champions. We're going to sacrifice them or chickens in this spot. Click upgrade, and boom, now we have a 5-star Z Itchy, right? So you can take them all the way up to 6 stars. And let me repeat this, guys, this is important. Your first goal in Raid Shadow Legends is going to be to get your starting champion to 6 stars. It's going to take you a while because they're going to start in 4, then to 5, and then eventually you can get them to 6 stars. You need to sacrifice other champions and level them up on the way, but then you'll have your first 6-star champion. After that, or at the same time as that, you want to be concerned with the Minotaur's Labyrinth, okay? This is where we're going to get scrolls. What do scrolls do? Man, this is complicated. It's actually not that bad once you get the hang of it, right? Let's look at Inquisitor Shemiel, right? Masteries. We have artifacts, we have skills, and we have masteries. Skills require books, and books are hard to come by. We talked about sacred shards and void shards being difficult to obtain in this game. Well, books are difficult too, so use them wisely. The biggest thing you need to know about skill tomes, or books as they're called, is the rare ones and the epic ones are easier to come by. They're much less expensive as well. So what you want to do is focus first on not just upgrading epic and legendary champions if you're lucky enough to get any. Focus on really high quality rare champions, maybe an epic or 2 at the same time, because you focus on lower rarity champions, they're gonna be so much cheaper and faster to level up, okay? On masteries, these are the masteries. They give you bonuses for all your champions, and you can choose support tree, defense tree, or offense tree, right? How do you get these masteries unlocked? Well, these scrolls up here in the upper left-hand corner, right? So those scrolls, guys, again, that's where you go to Minotaur's Labyrinth. That's where you farm those scrolls. And again, it's going to take a while to get your first champion fully maxed out scroll-wise and mastery-wise, but after that, it's going to be a lot faster, a lot more efficient, so stick with it. Remember, the early game, it's a shame this is the way, but in the early game Raid Shadow Legends, that's the real grind, okay? There was one other way on how to upgrade your champions. Ascension. Look at these stars over here, guys. So if you look above Mortu Macabre's, or next to Mortu Macabre's name, we see these 6 stars. That means he is fully leveled up to 6 star, which is the highest you can take a champion here in 2023 at least, right? But let's look at a 5-star champion really quickly if I have one. right? So what you want to do is, well, here's a 4-star, for example, right? Here's a 5-star champion. See how the stars are yellow on this champions instead of, you know, as we saw, a red and purple here? Well, to make them purple, that's going to unlock your accessories slots, right? So look at Manaya. She has all 3 of these accessories, a ring, an amulet, and a banner here unlocked. But look at a champion like Irigrim. He does not have that unlocked. It says 5-star, it says 6-star. We need to ascend them in order to unlock these areas. They also get some nice stat bonuses as well. So how do we ascend? We already talked about masteries. We talked about how to get those. What about ascending champions? You do that in, you guessed it, the tavern. That's where we do all our upgrading rank and upgrading skills. And then ascend is right here as well. So we want to take a champion. Let's go ahead and pull up anybody who's not ascended right now. Let's use Maneater. We want to go ahead and ascend Maneater. These are our potions. We go ahead and press ascend, and bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. He has 1 star, ladies and gentlemen, right? So he gets a small stat increase, excuse me, and then eventually we can, you know, get him 4, 5, and 6 starred and fully ascended. How do you get those potions? Well, that brings us back to the dungeons. The Arcane Keep. And all of these keeps give you potions for all the different affinities. Ash, what are affinities? Things are getting complicated. Not to worry, guys. There's only 4 affinities in Raid Shadow Legends. We can just go to the champion index, take a quick look at all of them, right? So we see this blue little thing over here. That's magic affinity. We see the red little thing here. That's force affinity. We see this triangle here. That's void affinity, which you can only get from the void shards. And then we have this little lightning bolt here. That is spirit affinity. Now listen up. You might want to write this down. Spirit affinity is a strong matchup against force affinity. Force affinity is a strong matchup against magic affinity. And magic affinity is a strong matchup against spirit affinity. So it goes in kind of a circle here, and void is neutral. They don't have any strong or weak matchups. There's a lot of different things I'm not going to cover in today's video, which goes into what makes a strong matchup or a weak matchup, such as less chance to get a critical hit, less chance to land a debuff, stuff like that. But just know that it's stronger to go, if you're going against a blue boss, a magic affinity boss, it's stronger to use a force affinity champion because they have the matchup advantage there, okay? So those are affinities, and you get all of those potions right from all of the keeps. Arcane Keep, Void Keep, Force Keep, Magic, and Spirit. Now you know what Spirit, Magic, Force, and Void actually mean. Those are where you get the potions for those particular champions, right? You know what Minotaur's Labyrinth means, or is, excuse me. Sam Devil's Necropolis, guys, is a brand new dungeon. Like we talked about with the Iron Twins attached to Blessings and Awakening. You don't have to worry about that right now as a new player. Same thing with Sam Devil's Necropolis, right? It's not really, even new players I don't even think have access to this right away, but once you do, using a little bit of energy to farm like stage 1 is totally cool. You get these oils. This is, again, brand new feature at the time of this recording. These oils are going to allow you to ascend artifacts. We haven't even talked about what artifacts are, but I'll tell you in just one moment. But this is a new feature that, just like making those little stars go from yellow to purple on the champions, this is going to do that for artifacts as well. So they added this whole dynamic into the game recently. You use these oils to do that, right? All right. These 4 dungeons are the old school 4 dungeons in Raid Shadow Legends. Ice Golem's Peak, Dragon's Lair, Fire Knight's Castle, and Spider's Den. We talked about accessories, right? Ring, amulet, banner. Remember the things that you have to ascend a champion in order to get? Well, you get them all from Spider's Den. Spider's Den is also the best place to farm silver, which you need to upgrade anything in this game. You need it for so much stuff in this game. The best place to farm silver is Spider's Den because accessories sell for a lot more than artifacts. So what we can do is just farm up these accessories and then sell them. We don't have to keep them all, and then we'll get a lot of silver in return. So again, best place to farm is Spider's Den, okay? You're gonna need different type of champions and different teams to tackle each of these dungeons, and I have dungeon guides on the channel as well if you want to check any of those out. Most players start in Dragon's Lair because speed gear, accuracy gear, lifesteal gear, all incredibly good in the early game. Let me repeat that. Accuracy, speed, and lifesteal are great in the early game. Notice how there's a bunch of stages. They all cost, you know, an escalating cost of energy, right? So we get 8, 10, 12, etc. Eventually, you get all the way down to stage 25. And as I mentioned earlier about affinities, you can see that each of these bosses have their own affinity. So we talked about this, right? If you see a spirit affinity, you might want to be using your magic affinity champions because they have a strong matchup against spirit. If you see a void, it doesn't really matter because there's no bad or good matchup. And if you have a void champion, same thing with them, right? They have no necessary bad or good matchup when you're using the champions against a boss. Stage 9, we see magic. You might want to use a force affinity champions for this stage. Now, the last thing I want to show you guys about these dungeons, you see 1 to 2 stars artifacts, 1 to 3 stars artifacts, 2 to 3 star artifacts. What you want to do is kind of break this down. Your first goal should be clearing stage 13, right? Because at stage 13, you can get your first chance at 6-star artifacts. Those are max level artifacts, right? Max rank artifacts. Every artifact can be leveled up to level 16 as well. That would be a max level. And again, 6 stars is max rank. So you should use this as kind of a, I don't know, kind of an indicator of how strong your account is getting. Can I get to the point where I can eventually farm stage 13 so I can have access to rank 6 artifacts to put on my champions and make them stronger so I can eventually get down to stage 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, etc. Okay? Generally speaking, stage 24 of dungeons is the most efficient place in terms of your energy versus the rewards that you can farm in all of these dungeons. And generally speaking, Dragon's Lair is the easiest dungeon, nice starting dungeon to work on. And then maybe Fire Knight, Ice Golem, and Spider. It just depends on what champions you have. They're all kind of challenging, but you can definitely figure them out, and you will figure them out as you progress and as you upgrade different champions on your account, okay? Let's talk about artifacts, right, guys? So artifacts are what we're putting on our champions, right, to make them strong, to give them extra stats above their base stats, as we talked about earlier in this video, right? We already talked about how to unlock your accessory slots. The amulet unlocks at 5-star ascension, which is right over here. 6-star ascension, we get the banner, right? And those are going to be powerful, so we do want to ascend our starting champion and, you know, farm up those potions. But the most important thing is, especially on your starting champion, is going to be getting crit rate gauntlets on their gloves, their gauntlets, right? So crit rate is going to be super important. If we look at the total stats, one of the most common mistakes that early players make in Raid Shadow Legends is not getting 100% crit rate on their damage dealers, right? That's going to be so much more important than getting a lot of attack or a lot of defense or a lot of HP or a lot of anything else, right? Getting enough crit rate, 100%, right? 100% crit rate is going to be imperative. After that, we want to make sure, second goal is if they have any debuffs, they need to land them. What am I talking about? Debuffs and landing and all that baloney. Well, let's just go ahead and look at Galek, for example, right? Don't mind his gear, he's half naked here. But he's placing a, see this, see this? Decreased defense. You can see it on the bottom. Those are called debuffs, right? We already talked about this with War Maiden. She's going to go before our Nuker, going to make them all squishy, reduce their defense so we can blow them away, right? So to land these decreased defenses, we need accuracy. General rule of thumb in Raid Shadow Legends, if we're trying to do anything other than hit the opponent, right? So if we're trying to reduce their turn meter, trying to land any debuff, any red thing, you know, that any skill does in the game, we're gonna need accuracy, right? So having enough accuracy on our champions is going to be imperative. So for example, general rule of thumb, we have 255 accuracy on Kale right now, right? General rule of thumb is you want around 10 accuracy per stage of the dungeon that you're focused on. So if we're looking at stage 13 of Dragon's Lair, where I recommended you guys try to get to, we're gonna need around 130 minimum accuracy on those champions. 140, 150 would be nice, right? So you're gonna have to scale up your accuracy. Now, the best place to get accuracy, especially in the early game, is eventually getting an accuracy banner. You can see the main stat is accuracy, and I have 96. That's a lot of accuracy to get. You can also be on the lookout for accuracy auras. We talked about auras earlier. They kind of add to your team stats. So if you see a champion with an accuracy aura, you can take advantage of that. And there's also accuracy gear that gives you 40 extra accuracy per 2 pieces. So there's a lot of options out there to help you boost up your accuracy, but people not paying enough attention to accuracy on champions who need it. Now listen, if you have a champion like Elhain, for example, who has no debuffs, she's not doing anything to anybody. There's no red here. You don't need accuracy, okay? So only champions that are affecting the enemy team in any way, that requires accuracy, okay? And there's some good accuracy masteries as well, just pointing them out in the support tree. There's pinpoint accuracy, Right next to here, there's Charge Focus, and then there's Swarm Smiter, and you can go all the way down to Eagle Eye, which is 50 extra accuracy. So even in the masteries, you can gain extra accuracy there. The last thing you want to be concerned about, guys, is keeping them alive, okay? Notice that I have an HP percentage. Percentage is generally better in Raid Shadow Legends than flat stats, meaning some of them say not percentage, not HP percentage, but just flat out a number of HP. That's called a flat stat. Generally speaking, we don't like flat stats. We like percentages. We like to scale off their base numbers. So there's nothing wrong, even on your nukers, especially in the early game. Number one goal, to keep these champions alive. So go ahead and put HP percentage or defense percentage on their chest. I prefer HP a little bit to defense, especially in the early game and the late game, I guess. So to keep them alive, right? If your whole team is staying alive and you're clearing these dungeons nice and easy, then you can consider, okay, I can make a sacrifice. I'll get rid of the HP and I will go with attack instead, make them hit a little bit harder, okay? The last and really important thing, guys, is you're basically going to want to have speed on your boots on pretty much all your champions in the early game, right? The only artifact out of all these artifacts that you can get speed as a main stat on is your boots. So keep any boots with speed as a main stat, okay? These other things here are substats. Every 4 levels that you upgrade an artifact is going to give you a little bonus to one of these substats. Rare artifacts, you're going to get 2 levels worth of bonuses. Epic artifacts, you're going to get 3 levels of bonuses. And legendary, you're going to get 4. Let me show you a legendary piece here. See how this one, we have 2 on crit rate and 2 on attack. So you can see this is legendary. It's got like the gold border here, whereas these have the purple border. These are epic. Rares have just the blue border here. You can see on this chest right here. So we only get 2 extra levels on this rare artifact. You can see speed and crit rate on the substats. So those are artifacts, guys. Again, big takeaways is crit percentage on your gauntlets, some survivability, HP percentage, defense percentage, maybe attack percentage if you can get away with it on your chest, and speed on the boots, okay? Especially in the early game. All right, guys, so a few more areas. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but you can reference this video, of course, anytime you want to, right? Come back, chill with me, talk some Raid Shadow Legends. Faction Wars. So Faction Wars was added to the game around 3 years ago. It was kind of the first big expansion of Raid Shadow Legends. We're given keys that we can use every day. Surprisingly, this is an area that doesn't require us to use our energy in Raid Shadow Legends. Faction Wars are going to give us something called glyphs, and it's also going to give us forge material. Faction Wars are worth spending your time on, even in the early game. Even if you can only clear the first stage, you can get 1-star glyphs, and 1-star glyphs are better than no glyphs, and you'll get some forge material. In Faction Wars, you can only use certain factions, like Ogren Tribes or Undead Horde. Remember when we were looking at all the champions in the game here in the index? These are factions: Bannerlords, High Elves, Sacred Order. You don't need to know necessarily what faction every champion is in the beginning. You will know because they'll only allow you to use certain factions for each crypt. So you'll see what you have available every single day. Those do change and rotate every single day. So we have 6 hours left for Ogren Tribe. Well, I've already done it today, but let's talk briefly about glyphs and about forge material. Forge material, you can see it right here. Collect more materials. Willstones. Where do you get them? Faction Wars. There you go. That's how you get your willstones. So that's forge material, pretty self-explanatory. What about glyphs? Glyphs was, again, the first way added to the game that you can kind of really upgrade an accessory or an artifact, right? So let me just go ahead and pull somebody up here. Let's pull up a random helmet. And let's click upgrade. Well, it's already level 16. I told you guys earlier that that's as high as it can get, right? So what can we upgrade on this? Well, we can go to enchant. And what are all these? These are glyphs. What they do is they add a bonus stat to all of those substats. So let's just go to defense here and see how it says defense 48, and see how this one says defense percentage, flat stat, percentage. Remember how we spoke about that a little bit earlier? So we're gonna go ahead and use this defense flat stat glyph. There we go. I'm gonna get a bonus, a little bonus stat to the stats that we already have, right? So nice and easy there. That's how you use your glyphs, and that's what Faction Wars is really for. Again, Faction Wars is something worth your time, even in the early game of Raid Shadow Legends. All right, Clan Boss and Doom Tower. Before we get into Clan Boss, let's talk about Doom Tower. Doom Tower was added about 1.5 years ago. It was a big update. It's essentially 120 floors, right? Covered every 10 floors by these big bosses. Doom Tower is something that you can use your time on. There's two difficulties, normal and hard. You can definitely go, after you've been playing for like a month or so, nothing wrong with going up the normal tree and just seeing how far you can get. These things on the right-hand side are bosses, right? These things on the left-hand side, SR1, SR2, SR3, SR4, and all the way up. Well, basically every single, month or whatever, every rotation of Doom Tower, these secret rooms are going to give you fragments, champion fragments to exclusive champions you can only get in Doom Tower. What are champion fragments? I've heard that before, Ash. Well, remember the portal at the beginning of this video? Fragment summon. All these champions, or at least a lot of these champions, these are champions from Doom Tower, right? So I'm working on getting these champions from Doom Tower. Who am I working on right now? Let me just show you. Jinro the Stork, right? So I have 43 out of 100 fragments, and I get those fragments from those SR1, SR2, SR3, etc., right? So that's what you can get out of Doom Tower. In the early game of Raid Shadow Legends, I would experience Doom Tower. I would check it out on normal difficulty, see how far you can get, but you don't have to stress out right away with Doom Tower. You're better off focus right on the regular main dungeons for your time in the campaign and kind of leveling up your first champions, right? Last but not least, it's clan boss. So I mentioned clan boss earlier. First off, there's 2 clan bosses, and there might be a third sometime this year. Who knows, right? See this little area right now? No one knows what it is. Hydra clan boss. Hydra clan boss is something that you guys can go ahead and mess around with, but it's a more difficult version of the clan boss. Either way, we're working with our clan to do damage against this big boss creature every single day or every single week, and we're given a limited amount of resources called keys, right? So generally, we want to focus on clan boss, on Demon Lord, the old school clan boss in the beginning of the game, because that's how we can get those skill tomes to rank up the skills of our champions. Remember, artifacts, skills, and masteries. That second thing, skill tomes, a lot of that and the more rare shards are eventually going to come from the higher difficulty levels of the Demon Lord, okay? So, really important in the early game, when you go to find your very first clan in Raid Shadow Legends, find a clan, first of all, hopefully of good human beings, right? You want to have a pleasant experience playing this game. Secondarily, but just as important, you want to find a clan that is beating and fighting every single day actively the same level of difficulty clan boss that you're kind of focused on, right? So in the early game, you can see this is how much damage you need to get these chests, right? And if you kill the clan boss with your whole clan every day, you're gonna get 2 of these chests, double the rewards, right? So I need about 1 million damage here, right? On the easy difficulty to get my best chest, the warrior chest. On normal difficulty, I'm gonna need a little over 3 million damage. On hard difficulty, I need a little bit 10 million damage. On brutal difficulty, I need 21 million damage. Sorry, guys. On Nightmare, I need 39 million. And on Ultra Nightmare, I need 70 million damage to get that best chest. And again, this is where you can get those shards, those juicy sacred shards. Let's see what this one has, the Nightmare. The Nightmare might be a little bit more obtainable, and again, you can get those sacred shards, you can get legendary skill tomes, epic skill tomes, some of the most difficult stuff to get inside Raid Shadow Legends. So very important to find a team. This is why Kale I recommended as the great starting champion for you guys, because he has poison. Poison, especially in the early levels of Demon Lord, is going to be king, right? That's how you get a lot of damage on the Demon Lord, and it can help you out in the Dragon as well, okay? So guys, before I give you the golden rule of Raid Shadow Legends, the last thing I do want to mention on the artifacts that I meant to mention earlier is, generally speaking, when we're upgrading our artifacts, we really want to start with the middle row, right? The middle row, the top row is always going to be flat stats, right? So attack 170, HP 4,000, defense 225. There's no way to get a percentage. But the middle row, you're going to get those percentage stats, and those scale, as we mentioned earlier, a lot better. So even the flat stat speed, it's okay. That would be the exception to the rule, right? Flat stat speed is very good. So what we want to do, guys, is focus on that middle row first. Usually get those to I get everything to level 12, and then try to get these to level 16, and then you can start focusing on the top row per champion, right? That's kind of the strategy that I use. Now, the golden rule of Raid Shadow Legends is, listen, guys, you've seen it throughout this guide a few times, right? These ads pop out at you, right? All the time. It is a gacha game at the end of the day. It's a great gacha game. In my opinion, it's the best gacha game out there. So you're in luck, at least. You're playing the best one, the best version of any champion collector gacha game in the genre. I might be biased, but I mean, my name's Ash Raid Shadow Legends, for God's sake, right? But the golden rule is, guys, and listen to me here. I really mean this. You don't need to spend money on this game to enjoy this game. You really, really don't. There is not this massive, robust PvP element to Raid Shadow Legends. You're not competing with anybody else. You're competing with yourself, and at the end of the day, it's a video game. It's a game. So just enjoy it. They're going to throw a lot of things at you, right? A lot of packages, a lot of things to buy. And sure, if it's going to help you out and if you're inclined to spend a few dollars on the game for entertainment, go for it. I don't judge either way. But just know that you don't have to. They're going to throw special fusions, special events. Right now we have an extra legendary event. You don't need to feel compelled all the time to spend or even build different champions or go for every special event or go for every fusion in this game. The ironic thing about Raid Shadow Legends is they're going to give you everything you need for free in this game. And I really mean that. Look at the daily login rewards, for example. You're going to get some of the best champions in the game. High Katoon, after 30 days, is a really good champion. She should be probably the first epic champion that you max out on your account, right? And then we're going to get champions like Dark Elhain, who's a great nuker. We're eventually, after 180 days, going to get Syl the Drakes, who's one of the best legendary support champions in the game. She revives too. We're going to get Grush the Mangler, a great hybrid healer. Then we're going to get Vizixas for 270 days. And they're always throwing more free champions at us. This year alone, we got 2 or 3 brand new free champions just by logging in 7 days in a row. They always have these big marketing events where you can get free legendary champions. We got Rhonda this year. We got Ultimate Death Knight. We got Ninja, Alexander the Great, Deliana, a bunch of different champions, and they're going to continue to do that in the future. The cool thing is, if you want to spend, sure, it's going to save you a little bit of time in this game, but you don't have to. Never feel pressured to upgrade any champions, to go for anything in this game, and just enjoy it at your own leisure. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this 2023 beginner's guide for Raid Shadow Legends. Again, I invite you to subscribe to the channel if you're if you think you're going to keep playing the game. Go ahead and join me every single day talking some Raid. Thank you very much, and as always, take care, guys.